All right, big announcement time. Cards on the table. In the next week or so, I am going to be deciding whether or not I am becoming a full time content creator. So if you are in the position to show me some financial support, like this is the moment. This is decision time for me where I'm going to sit down with my boss and say, this is my situation. This is what's happening. So if you are in the position to support me via Patreon, via YouTube memberships, by doing a donation deck list, or in some other way, like setting me up with a sponsor or something like that, like this is the critical moment, and this is very exciting and also very scary for me. All right, I'm going to be showing this ad all week, and then we'll kind of resume to normal, just do 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 do, and then cutting straight to the deck tech. The recommended round for this video is round 5 versus Nick Fit, which features a pretty hilarious and disastrous veteran explorer backfiring on our opponent. Hey folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. Today we're going to be playing what I guess I want to call 4-color JUND? So, literally speaking, JUND is black, green, and red. And the JUND decks traditionally operate by using early discard spells like Thoughtseize to pave the way for powerful threats and some other things that might outscale or otherwise manipulate the game in a way that's difficult for our opponents. Now, I want to call this 4-color JUND because we're not playing like a traditional 4-color control deck. And almost always in Legacy, when you're playing 4-color control, you are playing with blue. The cantrips help to kind of hold everything together, make sure that you can hit your land drops, and oftentimes give you endgame card advantage with things like Expressive Iteration or Jace the Mind Sculptor. Instead, we're going to rely on some other things for our card advantage. We're going to be playing with White Plume Adventurer, because let's be real, the Undercity is a pretty busted dungeon, and the initiative is an incredibly strong mechanic that might eventually get itself banned in Legacy. Or at least this little person might end up going. And we're also going to be ramping into Minsc Boo, which closes a game incredibly quickly and is a very good thing to pave the way for discard. This was a tier 3 donation deck list, and I've given this deck list a lot of love. We'll see if it ends up being viable. Just kind of briefly talking about some of the things that I did. The original mana base had 2 Wastelands in it, and I don't think you get to get away with that shit in Legacy right now. Like, while Wasteland can be a very powerful card, if you kind of look at this mana base, it's pretty demanding. We really want turn 1 green, but there's a lot of matchups where we're also going to need turn 1 black. And on turn 3, if you look at the various combinations of things we could need, and realistically this is often turn 2, we're looking to have white, we're looking to have red, we're looking to have black, black, green, green, and black, green, while also having red, green on turn 3 or 4, so that we can start doing sweet Cascade stuff. So I don't think you get to play any colorless lands here. Something that I'm unsure about without playing any games with this deck list is whether or not you're actually supposed to run all 4 basic lands. Basic lands in a 4-color deck list is oftentimes tough unless you have something like Deathrite Shaman or maybe Arkham's Astrolabe to hold it together. But here, I want to make sure that for the first stage of the Undercity, I can actually get a basic land that lets White Plume Adventurer kind of serve as mana fixing. So I think the original deck list I got had like 3 or 4 mana dorks, and I pumped up those numbers to make sure that we can actually cast our spells. The original deck list also had more Tarmogoyfs, but I don't think we can get away with running very many of those. And the original deck list had Abrupt Decay rather than Assassin's Trophy, but Assassin's Trophy misses out on some really critical cards in the format right now, such as Murktide Regent and Seasoned Dungeoneer, and so I'm opting to play the Assassin's Trophy, which does give our opponent an advantage, but is going to be a better catch-all. And it's also going to be a better hit off something like a Bloodbraid Elf. In terms of things that I'm a little bit uncertain about, I'm uncertain if this deck really needs 7 1-drop discard spells, because the plan is frequently going to be play a turn 1 mana dork to accelerate into other things. So I think this is too many, and some of this should be a little bit higher up on the curve. I thought about moving 1 or 2 of these to a Hymn to Turok, and then I looked at the mana base and went, maybe not. In terms of other thoughts here, The sideboard is relatively kind of split between things that are going to deal with unfair decks and things that are going to deal with fair decks. The donor, Michael, originally submitted this with Sheoldred's Edicts in the main deck, and I'm going to respect that choice and see how this card feels today. My general opinion that I stated on the Eternal Glory podcast recently was that I think Sudden Edict is just the better card in the context of Legacy, whereas Sheoldred's Edict is better if you are trying to solve a specific problem, such as, answering Merit Lodge through other bodies on board. But the sacrificing a Planeswalker mode might be relevant. We don't have bolts in this list as it's constructed, so we can't use those to take out Planeswalkers. So I'm going to see how this feels. Final note here, I am playing a Pernicious Deed, despite the fact that I'm playing a bunch of Mana Dorks. The idea is that in the matchups where I bring this in, this is going to hurt my opponent far more than it is going to hurt me, and the flexibility of Pernicious Deed seems better to me than the narrowness of Meltdown. We'll see how I feel about this as the league goes on, though. All right, folks, let's go ahead and hop into the matches here. If you're new here and you like what you see, please subscribe. And if you're a regular, throw me a like before this video begins. It's the easiest way to support my content for free. Let's battle. Okay, so this is kind of a tough opening hand. I have very reasonable cards, but no acceleration. And if my opponent is not playing a fair creature deck, I don't really have anything reasonable to do in the first few turns. I think to leverage the fact that I'm on the play, I'm just going to go ahead and ship that one. I need another mana source with this hand, but Witherbloom command can probably find me that. I think I'm going to pitch the Sheoldred's Edict and keep this hand. Oh, actually, the Witherbloom command can't find me that. Because this is a mountain. Alright. This is definitely Bayou. And let's try to punch a hole here. Oof. And I'm just going to zoom in on this one for a second in case you're not familiar with it. I'm going to go ahead and take the Dragon Rage Channeler here. I don't want my opponent getting just absolutely huge amounts of value off of their Dragon Rage Channeler Surveil triggers. So my opponent will instead use their turn to ponder. We have a Source of Plowshares for a couple turns down the line. I'm in really bad shape versus a Wasteland. Alright, so this is a sorcery, right? Yeah, this is a sorcery. I think since I have my next land drop, I don't need to just fire this off immediately. Possible I'm supposed to play out the Verdant there so that I can end of turn Swords to Plowshares. So this is a line that punishes me for not just casting the Witherbloom command. Yeah, that's fine. Alright, so we're definitely seeing the awkward mana issues that can arise. I think I was supposed to keep this hand, but it's definitely awkward. Okay, it's just a Strix. That's fine. Hopefully that just eats it to part of a Witherbloom command. I'm not going to Swords to Plowshares that when I know Murktide Regent is coming. I can't Liliana this turn. That's okay. I can do that a little bit later. This has to get black. I think this is supposed to be another Bayou. So let's mill 3, kill a creature. Target me, do that. And attempt to kill Strix. I will go ahead and pick up a fetch land. I've made my land drop. I'll call it a turn. I'm in an okay position. I'm going to have to figure out something about like this mental misstep that's going to be protecting Murktide Regent from Swords to Plowshares. The answer is probably just Liliana minus works it out, or like cast the Assassin's Trophy, but I'd prefer to not cast Assassin's Trophy. Ponder away. Dragon Rage Channeler is fine. In theory, is going to give me an opportunity to cast a Swords to Plowshares around Mental Misstep. Sorry, Minor Misstep. Man, it's really awkward if I do that. I guess with 3 removal spells in hand, it's okay if the mana is word. This feels like a scrubland. Let's go ahead and Lily. And I will just Edict my opponent. I know my opponent has a Lightning Bolt that they can use to finish off Lily, but that's still a 2-for-1 in my favor. And if my opponent goes like Lightning Bolt into Murktide Regent, then I have an opportunity to play around Minor Misstep Yep. That's all fine. Alright, this would be a great turn for a threat. Negative? Could double Assassin Trophies my opponent's lands and hope they don't have very many basics, but I don't think that's the best route to go with my removal spells. The issue is that, like, my opponent can absolutely just kind of sit back and start casting things like EI. Alright, so we'll swords this around the known counterspell. Draw like a white plume, baby. Fuck. And this is, like, absolutely where I wish I had cantrips. I'm maybe not even supposed to play that land because of Fable of the Mirror-Breaker's looting ability. But my mana base is very much vulnerable to Wasteland, so having the extras in play is totally reasonable here. This is a great pickup. Let's see if we can start riding this to victory. My opponent has 7 cards in hand. This isn't super likely to resolve. Alright, yep. Are we brainstorming? Spell Pierce isn't going to do it here. Yeah, we're brainstorming. Now, are we resolving? We are not. My opponent has pitched a Brazen Borrower. This is a pretty reasonable card. I'm a little surprised the Minor Misstep isn't going, because, like, I've been actively playing around that all game. Spell Dancer is fine. I will remove that on my own turn, I think, to just play around all the soft removal. I'll hold that land. Alright, get out of here. If my opponent has a basic. Oh, they do not have a basic. So in the future, Assassin's Trophy is just Sinkhole. Good to know. I'm not going to be fighting over my opponent's lands, though. Like, I just need a threat. Okay. This is, again, fine. I think with 2 mana available, it's totally fine to just go ahead and dunk this. I have white. I don't have red yet. I guess I also have 2 green. Taiga is a good pickup then. Goodbye, Spell Dancer number 2. Oh, do you have like an actual factual counterspell or something over there? Okay, you're putting back a Force of Will. Sure. It's another Brainstorm. Alright. Are we finally gonna pitch the Minor Misstep? Nope, still holding it. I mean, I guess it could be down there with the Brainstorm. This is super awkward fucking timing with this card. I have to just play it, but like, where were you the previous literally 9 turns of the game? Alright, I'll pick up a basic land. Not going to play it here in hopes of Fable doing good stuff, but FYI, this is unblockable. Card is quite strong. I am basically dead to a Lightning Bolt or Snuff Out here. My opponent has 2 unknown cards, and they can do some cool stuff with Mercurial Spelldancer and EI here. Don't get a basic land for the initiative, which is nice. Yep, there we go. So they get 2 copies of EI to find an out to my White Plume Adventurer, or otherwise make it so that I can't take the initiative back. Dragon Rage Channeler is absolutely a 3/3. Yep. And another land drop to boot. Okay, that's a hell of a hit here. I'll play this. Cast Minsc Boo. Hope it works out in my favor. Okay. Looking good so far. I think I want to plus this here. Yep. So as of right now, my opponent has to attack both of these here to kill this. So I guess I'm going to try to make this trade and keep my Minsc Boo alive in some timelines. Alright. Pretty bad for me, though. A Lightning Bolt is utterly brutal. Oh, fuck, I forgot about Forge. Yeah. I mean, I just flooded out for too long. Like, this is turn 11. Snuff Out would have gotten me even if I went for a Minsc Boo minus last turn. Yeah, I mean, we just lost to EIs after flooding out in the mid game. Like, I have to play this. It's already answered. I'm just gonna concede here. We're not coming back from this. It's a bit of a frustrating loss. Pyroblast, Carpet, Sudden Edict. Yeah, like we have 15 threats. Like a quarter of my deck are threats. Well, a little more than that, right? We didn't even hit any of this stuff either. That was rough. Alright, so I've got 6 cards that I want to board in. If the games are going to go that long, like if that's indicative of how these are going to look, I don't want to be top decking discard. I'm not going to have the life total to abuse Sylvan Library here. And it gets a little tougher. Carpet is not strictly, but largely better than these cards. I just do a 1-for-1 replacement of one of each of those and call that good. I don't think I want Deed here. Okay, I've kept my opening hand here. I will not be using Swords to Plowshares on turn 1 if my opponent plays a creature. I will just wait to do that around a daze on a future turn. Yeah, that's fine. I don't think I need to, like, Sudden Edict that. Verdant Catacombs is getting bad lands as of right now. Alright, absolutely don't mind drawing threats here. Try to remove this. We succeed. Fantastic. So we'll fall into the same pattern as last turn, where I just try to make a land drop before playing a removal spell that can just be answered. Okay, that doesn't actually answer, like, that doesn't actually impact me very much. Like, I have a couple copies of White Plume Adventurer, that's it. We're in a pretty good position here. I would very much like not to get wastelanded, and I would like to draw another land. Yeah. I'd rather save this for either a creature or an EI. Yep, that's fine. Okay, that Ponder shuffled. Alright, I don't love Thoughtseize as a draw here. This is just not where I want to be because this opens up this Badlands to Wasteland. But this is what I got. Oh, yeah, my opponent has boarded in things that are, like, way too narrow for this matchup. But I drew so few threats last game that they can't just, like, L. I think I actually just take the Hydroblast here and make my opponent 2-for-1 themselves with Force of Will to answer half a Bloodbraid Elf or something. Yeah, I'm going to take Hydroblast. My mana's really awkward here, because if this gets wastelanded, it shuts off literally all 5 cards in my hand. But I needed to get the Badlands to make these things castable and the Thoughtseize castable. Yes, that is fine. Nice value. Okay. I'm just going to Bloodbraid here. So I don't have a second Badlands. So do I want more access to red for Minsc Boo? Probably. That means Taiga here. Now Cascade happens on cast, not on ETB. Nice. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. That gets rid of Strix. And we'll crash in for 3. This, air quotes, wasn't good enough for Force of Will. And so hopefully I can play a Minsc Boo with Pyroblast backup in the not-too-distant future. This is the sort of stuff that I needed in the mid-game last time around. Yep. Looks like it is Murktide Regent time. Is totally fine. I need to answer Murktide this turn, and my opponent has Force of Will. I think this is a time where I just try to get the Force of Will out of their hand. Opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Let's get Murktide out of the way. This probably is Force of Will. Oh, no. Okay. I'm just absolutely unwilling to fire off that Force of Will, which I'm good with. Got Sudden Edict for if Brazen Borrower does hit play. Yeah, we got some good stuff going on here. This is a pretty good Minsc Boo turn. I don't want to play Liliana yet. My cards are just too good. So this needs to be a black source. Let's pick up a Bayou. Let's go ahead and Minsc Boo. Force pitching the known Brazen Borrower. I will attempt to counter Force of Will. Okay, and that's good enough for the win. I think my opponent sideboarded in cards that were too narrow at, like, great detriment to their own gameplay here. I'm not saying that's a misplay from my opponent's side of the battlefield. They just straight up saw almost no threats from me last game. I don't think I'm going to do any play draw differences here. I think the way that I lose is just like getting wastelanded or otherwise taken off mana. I'm going to try to keep a hand that has slightly more mana here. Okay. I assume I just keep 4 different lands here and the mana will work itself out somehow. I'm hoping for not a turn 1 threat. My opponent can get good value off a Dragon Rage Channeler before I can sudden Edict it. Mana Dork would be ideal. No. If one of these gets wastelanded, one of these is more expendable than the red, but the Pyroblast is usable on my opponent's turn. I think I am just going to go ahead and play out Taiga and pass, despite the fact that, like, getting wastelanded off of this can remove me from a color, and the others can't. I, like, kind of want to slow down this game with a Pyroblast if I can. So I will just eat this damage. Yeah, this is literally the card I had in mind when I decided to make this land drop. Okay, no counter spells from my opponent, which means Witherbloom command is safe. Green, black. We'll do Shrinky Dink. And I think I try to get another land drop. If we hit, ooh, yeah, we hit a Bayou. All right, fantastic. So now, unfortunately, I'm in the same scenario that I was in game 1, where I'm hoping to top deck a threat, and my opponent can just, like, fucking play EIs and bury me. All right. They hit their land drop off of that. They don't have another threat, which is nice. I'll play that next turn around Daze. I will clear the way for it this turn, though. Or at least get a preview of what's going on over there. Well, that's all very awkward. Because, like, in different ways, Strix, Bolt, Edict, and Torpor Orb all answer White Plume Adventurer. Would have been better jamming this turn. If I take Strix, they play Torpor Orb on their turn. White Plume is just a 3/3 that trades with a removal spell. That might be fine. Strix is the only thing that pulls them further ahead. I don't know. I can take Torpor Orb. They can play Strix. I can sudden Edict Strix, play White Plume Adventurer, and have the initiative. That's pretty good. Really awkward that I want to take this card considering how bad it is as a whole in this matchup. Alright. I've got a plan. That was a tough decision. Because the Strix gives them 1 extra redraw towards something else that interacts with me badly, like a Force of Will. Okay, it just hits a land drop. So there's 1 unknown card that could be Force of Will that pairs with Hydroblast and messes me up. Otherwise, this is resolving. I think I just chill on that. Play Savannah. Yeah, I think I just play this turn. Take my land drop. Lose White Plume to Bolt. God damn it. That's frustrating. So my opponent now gets to fetch twice, Mystic Sanctuary EI back on top, and end up in a really strong position. So I don't know whether or not that blue card was their draw step or what they got off of Strix. But now basically my Thoughtseize was a dead card. It just dealt me 2 damage to get rid of that Torpor Orb. There's a Wasteland that takes me off the Taiga. Yep. Hey, a Taiga. Let's Liliana. I will be plussing here. I need to get this out of range of Lightning Bolt. My opponent junked the Sudden Edict. Alright, they did not fire off Lightning Bolt at Liliana immediately. It's fine. The Liliana is in a position where she probably minuses and then eats it to Lightning Bolt. Oh, my opponent has double Lightning Bolt. Sure. Okay. Need to just top deck a threat. Thank you, Plains. Very cool. Yeah, so this is the problem with not playing EI in Legacy. Your opponent... Yikes. I will play this one. This represents another red source. Your opponent gets to do these EI Expressive Iteration Mystic Sanctuary loops, and you don't. And most other cards just don't keep up with EI in terms of the amount of value that they provide. That's a good one. This is why I wanted to hold at least 1 land. Daze is acceptable, but there's a price there. My opponent is dazing that just to return Mystic Sanctuary to hand to put, like, an EI back on top of library. No, Hydroblast is in exile. Okay, my token made it around the table. That's at least nice. Okay, yep, there's EI on top. Anyway, I am very much looking forward to EI eventually leaving the format. Yes, I will loot through both of those. Sheoldred's Edict is not great here. I just want more threats. That's all I want right now. All right, my opponent's at 14. I very much play around soft permission. Yeah, this is the third draw to that my opponent has gotten this game in my Witherbloom, White Plume, Adventure, and Liliana of the Veil. Like, very much pale in comparison. Oh, that's a Daze to exile. That's good for me. I feel like we have gotten incredibly lucky here. So basically, like my current question is, like, can my pair of 2/2s just deal 12 more damage to my opponent before they stick a creature with 2 counter spells as backup? Okay. Again, very lucky. Kind of. Am I just swinging both of these as 2/2s that are in? Like, copying this for another treasure token doesn't really matter here. And just, like, makes me worse off versus a lightning bolt. Yep, we're battling. Alright, it's working. I will very much consider... Wow. Yikes. Hard cast a snuff out. Yep. Still got a threat on board. That is a wonderful draw. Somewhat likely that my opponent has a counterspell in hand. Just kind of given the fact that they aren't cantripping and they aren't playing creatures. Let's attempt another one of these. Okay, just worked. I'm going to get to loot through 2 more lands. I didn't deserve that game. I absolutely did not deserve that game. Like, I played okay, but my opponent got to expressive iteration 3 or 4 times and then just completely bricked off for about 4 turns. Like, this is turn 13. They didn't hit a Murktide. They didn't hit another Mercurial Spelldancer or even a Dragon Rage Channeler, despite looking at a huge portion of their deck. Like, my opponent got 5 more cards deeper than me and, like, looked at some other cards that were then shuffled. Wow. Okay. This is one of those hands where if I draw another land in 2 draw steps, this hand's batshit insane. And if I don't, I stumble over myself and die. I think I'm going to ship this one. I want consistency. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think Endurance goes back. Endurance is really good in some matchups, though, and, like, having it is a safety net versus something like Black-Red Reanimator that my hand would otherwise be extremely bad against. But I think this card is more flexible and is not going to compete in terms of curve with my other cards. Either one of these fetches like a scrub land. This one can fetch Badlands, which I guess I might want. Badlands, Savannah is just all of my lands. Not the end of the world if I get Wastelanded on turn 1, since I have 2 more land drops and Witherbloom command. So let's just play this land out for flexibility. It's a Candelabra. Haven't seen one of those hit play in Legacy in quite a minute. That's usually indicative of, like, a Cloud Post type deck. Yep. What is the restriction on Witherbloom command? Oh, we're still going. Neat. That untaps Monolith. Hell of a turn. Another untap on Monolith. I regret wishing my opponent good luck. There's a Golos. And a Caracas, that's fine. So let's cut out this nonsense. Hopefully this is what my opponent kept their hand on the strength of. Inquisition's probably not good. I'm probably boarding that out in this matchup a lot of the time. So it feels to me like the Grim Monolith is the best thing over there with 2 keys. Candle's cool, but not that cool. Oh fuck, I wanted to play Verdant Catacombs for Badlands. Oh well. I need black. Guess now that I've made that mistake, I'm picking up Bayou. So let's get a land back, destroy Grim Monolith. This can get me my red. And then I've got my colors. I'm probably not going to cast Inquisition of Kozilek this entire game. my opponent will deploy whatever they can deploy this turn. They've got 3 mana. They can use one of that to untap an Ancient Tomb and go up to 4 mana. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Arn is just plussing here. Assassin's Trophy would be a cool draw. Negative. So I am going to need to play this. Pressure Karn. I have green. I don't have black. I don't have white. I don't necessarily need any of those, and I also just have another fetch land. It doesn't matter too much what I grab. If I draw Endurance, I still have green plus black for Inquisition already. I'm just gonna get a swamp since I have so many black pips in hand. So this turn can get a little crazy. Like, could eat a Mycosynth Lattice this turn, but it's not like that's particularly great right now. I could eat something like a Walking Ballista here, a Sky Sovereign. My opponent can use Manifold Key to untap Candle, and like the world is their oyster. Yeah, it is a Walking Ballista. So I'm just going to cut to my opponent making a Giant Ballista, because they're going to untap their stuff and retap. So this is 9 mana when everything is said and done, so that is a Walking Ballista for X equals 8. Sorry, X equals 4. 8 total mana. Alright, there it is. Alright, my opponent is going to opt to just do this now, which is probably fine. This means that I'm going down the Lost Well side to just kind of scry and fix my draw. We're basically just looking to bottom lands here. Oh, Assassin's Trophy is incredibly good. Wow, I wish I could take both of these cards right now. I don't really want to give my opponent the initiative. I'm also very much afraid of Karn just minusing and getting Lattice. I think I get rid of Sheoldred's Edict. I guess I can fetch to get rid of it. Yeah, so let's put this on top. Let's put that on top. Make my land drop. I guess I can see if their last thing is a small card. No, I am just going to save this for a Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Yeah, but those 2 cards were so good. I wish I could have taken both. Alright, no basic land from my opponent. All past turn here. I will probably be shuffling away the Sheoldred's Edict, but I will keep it on top for if my opponent has another creature here, and I need to double Edict. That's 6 mana. Are we just pumping into Ballista, or is it worse than that? Okay, my opponent's doing this Song and Dance again. I'm going to cut to what they cast or do. Okay, so my opponent taps the Ancient Tomb once, going up to 12 total mana, which is just going to be Walking Ballista activations. That brings Walking Ballista up to a 4/4, and I can cleanly just answer this with Liliana of the Veil. I know my opponent doesn't have a basic land, as I already gave them that opportunity with Assassin's Trophy. End of turn, I'll go ahead and fetch. Needs to be another black source, probably. Probably Scrubland. Very nice. With Liliana of the Veil here, probably just make this land drop. Yeah, I probably just do this. I don't need to cast this Inquisition. I can just continue to save that. So they're gonna ping once here and ping 3 times on me. Yep. Those 3 activations bring me to 11. I just think they have a land in hand. I'm going to go ahead and pass the turn here. Then I'll play White Plume next turn. My issue here is that they get to scry 2 this turn. And this is a deck that normally doesn't get selection. And when you give the deck that has effectively infinite mana selection, it does not bode well for me. Yeah, card got put on top there. Okay, that's the card that was in the hand before. Good read on my Inquisition. Fuck. Alright, so in case you haven't experienced this before, what happens is Golos searches for a land, then Golos gets bounced by Caracas, and they get to repeat this cycle. I think my opponent was kind of lazy in their sequencing, though, because they could have just, like, done all the candle stuff previously using Cloud Posts and probably avoided taking this damage. Alright, let's fast forward. So here's Golos the second time. Probably just getting like a Glimmer Post. Unless they have the indestructible rainbow land that I don't remember the name of. Oh, they're just going for another Cloud Post. That's fine. That's not what I need to top deck here. So how bad is my situation? 3, 6, 9. Down to 16. Yeah, I'm just going to get Eldrazi'd here. I'm going to go ahead and concede the game rather than show my opponent more cards. Rough. We made it to turn 6 despite my opponent's crazy turn 1. So I have a handful of things that can interact with early artifact mana. On the play, some amount of discard is justifiable, and on the draw, they're close to dead. Sheoldred's Edict is good here. It gets rid of Karns and such. I'm not excited about Endurance's 3/4 body here. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to shave one Inquisition. When I'm on the draw, I'm probably going to get rid of both of the other Inquisitions or 2 more copies of Sudden Edict. I'm going to keep this hand. Just kind of assuming that Witherblooming commanding my opponent's first artifact play of any kind is good. And if I don't do that, Fable into Bloodbraid Elf is a decent amount of pressure. Let's see how this does. This is a much more aggressive hand than I had last time around. Okay, no turn 1 play from my opponent here. Doing that instead? I'm probably just doing that instead. White, black, so I want Scrubland. Yeah, I want Scrubland here. That way, if Noble Hierarch ends up dying, I still have all my colors. I'm either going to take a green or a black here. I think a green. I've made my land drop. I'll pass the turn. The cool thing here is I actually do get to untap the Noble Hierarch, which kind of nets me a mana. Alright, what are we looking at? A Thought-Knot Seer? A Thought-Knot Seer. I don't exactly have removal for that right now. I would be taking the Bloodbraid Elf if I was the opponent. They disagree. Witherbloom command seems like a weird take to me. Don't know exactly what their justification for that is. Taking a big white Plume. 1, 2, 3. So I have 4 mana this turn. I probably just Bloodbraid Elf. It just gives me an extra body that I can throw away as a blocker pretty easily. I think that's better than Ignoble Hierarch and Fable. Like, a lot of times it hits an Edict or a discard spell, either of which I would be very happy with. White, red, green. I guess red is a consideration. Black is a consideration. Let's do that. Let us spin the roulette wheel of destiny. Thoughtseize is totally fine here. Ooh. 1, 2, 3 mana towards all is dust. That's not very much. Tabernacle is kind of an annoying thing. I should kill my opponent pretty quickly, though. 1, 2, 3. I guess Karn is the thing that my opponent could reasonably play next. Let's go ahead and take that. Yeah, Karn just represents things like Ensnaring Bridge that I don't want to mess around with right now. Alright, opponent goes to 12. I will untap my white Plume. So now I'm hanging better in combat. And my opponent is facing down an extreme amount of damage. So it's 5 from trap, putting them to 7. Then I play an Ignoble Hierarch, which is an attack for 7, meaning that Thought-Knot Seer has to chump block, at least as of right now. So I guess in theory, I can eat an All is Dust next turn. That puts my opponent to 7. I can choose not to play out additional cards here. I could just attack with White Plume Adventurer for 6. That still requires a chump block. I'm always playing out this land. The attack for 6 still requires a chump block because my opponent needs that Ancient Tomb mana. Attack for 5 is the same way, though, so I probably attack with both of these creatures. I don't care if Bloodbraid dies. Yeah, that's accurate. What about All is Dust where my opponent keeps Thought-Knot Seer? No, they can't take both of these. They have to... Yeah, yep. Okay. Alright, So my opponent goes to 4, so All Is Dust is a reasonable card that they can play. And at this point, I'll just pass my turn. But untap White Plume. My opponent needs to draw an untapped land in order to All Is Dust. And then they're still just facing down the initiative and a whole bunch of other cards that I can vomit into play. Okay, cool. So on the draw, I don't want these Inquisitions anymore. And I will play 2 more Sudden Edicts. What is my threat count, not counting Mana Dorks? 1, 5, 6. I'll count Liliana as a threat, I guess. 14. I wonder if I'm supposed to go down another removal spell or 2 to just literally play things that attack. I can pressure Karns and Planeswalkers. Like, I'm not... Like, how good is a 3/4 body on turn 2? Relatively good here. I think Edicts are better than Swords. Swords is a lot of life. This is fantastic. Not ideal, but I know that Assassin's Trophy is just a turn 2 sinkhole. And I can Force of Vigor pitching Bloodbraid Elf for whatever early accelerants my opponent has. Yeah, Chalice is fine. That has almost no text in this matchup. I'm not going to Force of Vigor and remove that immediately. I'll get punished by drawing a Mana Dork. Thank you. But I don't think it's worth removing that there. I just have so much better targets for Force of Vigor if I wait another turn. That's annoying. I think that occurs. Probably taking Sheoldred's Edict. Could take Assassin's Trophy, though. Like, those are the contenders. Okay, yeah, so my opponent is protecting their mana base here, which makes sense. Their Bloodbraid Elf is not the best. So do I want white mana more, or do I want red mana more? Probably white. White Plume is just a turn sooner. Probably care about green for Endurance as my secondary thing here. Yeah. Opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. I'm going to go ahead and do this now. I could wait, but there's really weird things that could happen, like Warping Whale, that could be very awkward for me. Hey, it's that Endurance that I just talked about. I might have to just Force a Vigor to remove Chalice of the Void, so that I have a play for if I miss my land drop. I'm not happy about this, because if I was going to have to do this, I would have liked to have done it on turn 1 and gotten that Noble Hierarch in play. Classic. Absolutely classic. That's okay. This guarantees that I can play Bloodbraid Elf next turn and be attacking for an absurd amount of damage. I could use black for Liliana here. I already have green. We'll call this a turn. So that's going to copy a Cloud Post. My opponent has 5 normal mana this turn. Be a Golos. Okay, we're going to instead see some artifacts played out that my opponent held. That's fine. It's good. That's where we're at. So we're getting aggressive. Sylvan Library is a reasonable draw that I'm not going to have time to cast in the immediate future. I'm hoping to hit threats or maybe discard here. Yeah. That's not what I'm looking for. It's fine. My opponent's on a 2-turn clock. Expedition Map can help with that. And, you know, I can get a Maze of Ith, a Glacial Chasm, whatever. Yeah, but they're at 8. They're about to be at 6 because of Ancient Tomb. See what this finds. Yep. Glimmer Post is not unexpected. That gives them another turn. Button untap this. And block a Reality Smasher in some timelines, although I don't think my opponent is in attack mode right now. 3, 6. I could get like Ulamogd. Karn's good. I assume this is like Ensnaring Bridge. I'm actually pretty good against that. I have double Hierarch. Yeah. This could have been so much worse. Let's wrap. Put my opponent 2/4. Another Endurance is not great. I probably need to keep Karn from tutoring more than I need to keep my opponent from Ancient Tombing. I will play a new Noble Hierarch. Send this damage at Karn. Now Karn cannot minus for a follow-up play, which is a big deal. I don't think end of turn endurance is going to do anything, whereas Sylvan Library looking for a Sheoldred's Edict or an Assassin's Trophy or something very much might. Untap this little Goblin Shaman as a treat. Alright, that's another Glimmer Post. Slightly scary time for me. Thought-Knot Seer is not that big of a deal when I have a Sylvan Library to find an answer to it. My opponent can Karn plus on like Manifold Key to make an extra blocker though. Oh, they didn't do that. That seems like a mistake to me. Because like plussing on Manifold Key gives them a much greater chance of being able to keep their Ensnaring Bridge. Alright, so I draw a card. Now I get 3 looks at a removal spell to get Thought-Knot Seer out of the way. There's one. Deck. Fucking come on, deck. That was 4 lands in a row. I think I lose the game because of that. Or might. Yeah, I'm not paying life for these. I'll Verdant Catacombs, shuffle away 2 of them. Put that back. Put that back. That's disappointing. Now my opponent gets to Karn minus and tutor. Okay. This is fine in theory. Like, Throne of the Dead 3 will do a lot of work in helping me out here. And if my opponent minuses, they can't just Mycosynth Lattice lock me out of the game. You can get something like a Walking Ballista and ping these little dorks, and that will be strong. Sky Sovereign's not attacking. Thought-Knot Seer's not attacking. Okay, they're not willing to lose the Karn. Let's end of turn shuffle here. Up a Scrubland. 5, 8, 9, 10, 11 damage. 14 with Bloodbraid. I'm thinking about All Is Dust. I think I still cast this anyway, because there's some timelines where I remove the Ensnaring Bridge and get some really big attacks in. Don't want that stuff back in their deck? No. Don't want my stuff back in my deck? Also no. Alright. Throne of the Dead 3 occurs. Honestly, another Hierarch lets me kill Karn if I find any removal spell in 4 cards. So I'm going to take that over a White Plume Adventurer, as weird as that sounds. That's a thing that I am allowed to cast. Okay, there's a Source of Plowshares. That's great. I think I'm just going to pay life to keep everything here. Alright. Land drop. Swords target Thought-Knot Seer. And the reason why I pay the life is because now I get a fresh look at a card, which could be a card that eliminates Ensnaring Bridge. Technically use Deed to get rid of Ensnaring Bridge, but that's not great. Now I attack Karn, and because I kept another Hierarch, Karn dies here, which is a huge breath of relief for me. I think I leave Pernicious Deed in hand. Dies to Thought-Knot Seer here, it dies to All Is Dust if I put it in play. I'm already losing a lot to All Is Dust. Like, removing Bridge at the cost of 6 permanents doesn't feel worth it. Alright. That's pretty savage top deck. Actually, it's not as bad as it looks. It's going to exile my library, and my White Plume. That's fine, but then that thing doesn't get to attack. Yeah, this is not the end of the world. I have plenty of edicts to start attacking in. Pick up a basic, doesn't really matter which one. Fable of the Mirror Breaker is a stellar draw at this point. We'll make a land drop. I might have a whole lot to do in future turns. No reasonable attacks. I'll pass the turn here. And I think I'm going to start F6ing my opponent's turns, not bluffing removal, because like we are getting to this point where this game is going to go on for a long time. And one of us timing out is very real. I think I lost well this. Get both of those out of the way. Draw more land. Junk both basics. Hey, that's very good. So let's Liliana. Edict targeting my opponent. Don't make a land drop. Attack for 3. This is a grind. I'm not very good at answering a top deck Planeswalker. I'm relatively fine versus most creatures that my opponent could bring out. Yeah, this is acceptable. Like, it's very good. Well, I didn't play out Deed earlier in case I do need to answer that. Treasure. Nice. Continue to venture. Make a skeleton. I could have actually played this slightly differently. A way that got rid of that. Fuck yeah, I had a better line here. Supposed to get rid of Ensnaring Bridge using this treasure token prior to playing White Plume Adventurer. Trying to play quickly and I messed up. Last zone is whatever. I am going to do this before I Throne of the Dead 3. Nuke that bridge. Just assume that whatever I do with Throne of the Dead 3 is good enough to kill my opponent in a couple of turns. Yep. I think I do still have a basic in there. I think I have the basic mountain still in deck. My opponent will charge up their Blast Zone to 3. I don't think should do until they see the rest of my turn. But we're both playing with the clock in mind right now. Okay, yep, there's the basic mountain. Right, that's not great. I'm going to hold both of those for another Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Thought-Knot's here is slightly annoying, but I have an answer. I'll get to draw a card here, but then my opponent probably takes that card. Yeah, this doesn't do anything if I cast it. So a minor misplay on my opponent's side. They're supposed to wait till I make my selection about these, but again, block. I will go down the Lost Well here. Not interested in this. Bottom both of those, thank you, deck. Oh, that's some shit. That finds Eye of Ugin, which kills me very quickly. Like, if I lose this game, it's my fault for not seeing the line fast enough while I was playing quickly. I can hit, like, an Assassin's Trophy here. That would be really strong. Nope. Again, missing the line is on me. My opponent would have been dead to attacks by now. That's a second Ulamog. Now my opponent gets to exile my Hierarch and a land of their choice. And then take the initiative. Oh, that's almost certainly a mistake. Yeah, that's just wrong. Wonder if my opponent still thinks there's Ensnaring Bridge in play. Alright, Fable is a great draw. I'll go ahead and play that. Make another creature. Do this. Pass turn. I die in 2 Ulamog attacks. To library size. So my current plan is just to try to time my opponent out. There's 30 seconds left. Alright. There's another Golos. Alright, so I exile 20, leaving me with 3 cards in library. Yeah, and it looks like my opponent is gonna time out here. Go ahead and trump block. Trump block. I will reveal the top 10. No things in there. And that's the end. GG's. That was much harder than it needed to be. I messed up that Pernicious Deed play. And nearly lost the game because of it. Alright, round 3. I think we're 2-0. I'm going to try to lead on Inquisition into Library into White Plume Adventurer. That's an awkward keep. I'm going to take this Stifle. I don't think it's a particularly good card right now in the next 2 turns, but losing my White Plume Adventurer trigger to Stifle or losing a fetch land off Sylvan Library to Stifle would be a pretty huge deal. I'm going to assume that this isn't a land destruction spell, given that my opponent is an Uro deck, and just jam a library. This league is going to last forever, though. I've had 2 1-hour round long, 2 very long, like 1-hour rounds, and since I'm playing against an Uro Urza Saga deck, I'm going to assume that this is going to be another one of those. So, like, buckle up. It is going to be a long fill video. I'm not complaining because this deck's fun to play. Okay, my opponent found a Misty. I'm going to assume that an Urza Saga has disappeared in the midst of that brainstorm. Deck! I'm going to eat this damage. I need to get through this stuff. Miss all that. Inquisition my opponent. Yeah, you can brainstorm. That's fine. Mycosynth Gardens. What does that mean? Stifle Knot is the answer. Also, fuck you. Great play. That brainstorm forced me to put an Uro into the graveyard. Like, chef's kiss on that play, opponent. Like, good shit. Yeah, so this is meant to find the Phyrexian Dreadnought. Yeah, that Wasteland's brutal here. Already just missing land drops. Oh! Sure. Isn't white mana. None of that is white mana. Alright. I don't think I can pay more life here, unfortunately. Yeah. I knew this. We're casting this one. So then I use this to loot through the crap that's on top of my library. White Plume Adventurer and Source of Plowshares I gain access to off of a treasure token. Alright. So this is Uro. And notice here that Mycosynth Gardens was actually used to mana filter that colorless mana into colored mana. And a follow-up Spell Bomb, which is pretty gross. What's my sequencing here? Probably just put 2 of these back. I don't know. I can pay 4 life for one of these. Put 1 back. Then, yes, use this ability. Boot through Thoughtseize and probably 1 White Plume Adventurer. Trying to get deeper and get to land. Fantastic. So let's fetch. I need white mana. Cannot get white and red simultaneously, so I will take white and green. I have to get that Uro out of the way. There's another one in the graveyard. Got attacks in for 3. Always yield to these. Opponent goes to 28. And now I get a choice of White Plume Adventurer or Assassin's Trophy in Urza's Saga that's about to search. I think I'm going to Assassin's Trophy that land. Because I'm covered from the Uros via Swords to Plowshares. I just don't want to end up in an oops, I dreadnoughted scenario. Oh my god. Yeah. I don't think I beat that, folks. Like I would love to be wrong, but I'm at 7 life. My opponent has Urza Sagas for days. On top. That goes on top. I guess the plan is copy White Plume Adventurer forever. Not the worst. I can go ahead and shuffle here. Just need more white mana. Spell Bomb is some shit. Yeah. Knew that was coming. I'm not going to attack for 1 here. Second main phase, I'll drop White Plume. That'll, I guess, pick up Mountain in case I lose Ignoble Hierarch. I'll call it a turn. My opponent makes some robots. Opponent will dredge Life from the Loam. Oh, no dredge on Life from the Loam. Alright, there's a robot. I don't think the life totals are super relevant here. I'm just going to hold the Swords to Plowshares in case I change my mind about what I need to target. So, for example, a Phyrexian Dreadnought happening could be a big deal. I will fire off in response to that, though. It has eaten 2 more of my opponent's mana by waiting, which is huge. Alright. Let's forge. Forge up my boy. Grist is interesting. Bayou goes back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana this turn. I think I just play White Plume. Alright. Land drop. Play White Plume. Take the initiative. Trap my opponent. Hit them for some damage. Making another 3/3 with haste that can attack. Probably fine considering that I have Swords to Plowshares. We copy. Draw a card. Take that Grist. Do I want to do Grist? I can junk this token. Kill this. Swords to Plowshares at instant speed is probably just better. Send them. Send them. My opponent makes their token. It's not that big of a deal. They're going to try to double block on this. Then I Swords to Plowshares. Of those tokens out of the way. So that I win combat. Okay, I am very happy that we won that one. Down about 3 minutes of clock, which is relevant. Um, but in case this wasn't obvious to you, on my turn, I controlled 2 White Plume Adventurers. I was going to get to, like, untap this and just make another token on their turn as well, getting Throne of the Dead 3. That was some cool shit. I liked that. In terms of sideboarding, these are slam dunk coming in, and these are things that I can play. What don't I want here? Armagoyf is probably not rumbling well in combat. Liliana's a little awkward versus Life from the Loam, but still might play it anyway because it is a recurable edict. This is going... I'm not super excited about Inquisitions as this game goes long. So, Force of Vigor and Deed are great versus the Urza Saga side of the deck. Pyroblast is reasonable, and then it's just like, how many surgical extractions do I want to deal with, like Life from the Loam and Uro? And do I want Sudden Edict versus Sheoldred's Edict? I'm going to get rid of a Lily for a surgical, and then find a way to get one more surgical in. Then I have surgical, endurance, to answer that stuff. One Thoughtseize? One Thoughtseize seems reasonable. I'm not playing Carpet because my opponent has a bunch of shit like Otawara and Mycosynth Gardens that aren't technically islands. I don't like one-landers with this deck. This is potent, and I didn't really see removal. Maybe if I didn't see removal, like, this is acceptable. Okay. 2 draw steps plus Sylvan Library to hit lands is probably fine on the draw. Ponder's no big deal. And that was a shuffle. Alright, never didn't have it. Mana Dork pass. And let's see if my opponent's loaming over there. Alright, they are not loaming. I think I want to play Fable. Fable runs into Hydroblast, though. I could just play Grist and get that going. Grist doesn't run into Hydroblast, but runs into any other hardcast counterspell. Regardless, I always want Badlands here, probably. Oh, maybe I should have played Bayou because of Stifle there. I forget Stifle does play Sylvan Library. It's probably okay. Yeah, let's Badlands and drop a Grist. Alright, Grist is in play. We'll see where this goes. Grist is less physically aggressive, but makes a lot of my opponent's creatures later on considerably worse. Like a Dreadnought, for example, like with a Grist on board, is not great. Okay, sure. Wasteland's fine. Roll of Fate, not a big deal. I'm gonna go ahead and start by attacking with a 2/2 Insect. Drop my opponent to 16. Leaving up white mana in this turn cycle. Which spell am I casting? Probably Fable? Probably Fable before I get Wastelanded off of it. Gives me extra mana as well. Go ahead and plus, call it a turn. Go ahead and fire off a Swords on that. Alright, it was a Dreadnought. I maybe don't have to fire that off there immediately, but it becomes very awkward quickly if my opponent were, say, to draw Force of Will as their draw per turn. Alright. What you got? Surgical's not great as of right now. Deed's fine. I think I'm gonna ditch the land, assuming that I find another. I can get rid of the Deed. It is clunky. Force of Vigor is fantastic. I'm very happy with that draw. I will be very happy to just trade that 1-for-1 with Scroll of Fate. So we'll do that now so that I can activate Grist, junking an Insect to get rid of whatever card they find. So this is still the same target. Turning it face up doesn't change anything about that, I do not believe. Stifle. Not bad. I'm going to go ahead and attack with my Goblin Shaman. I need 1 extra mana this turn so that I can play out Sylvan Library. Alright, cool. And I'll drop a library. Pretty happy with how that whole turn cycle went. This could get weird here. Like, this could be an Uro, it could be a Dreadnought. It is an Uro. Going at Grist. So I will chump. That's fine. Like, I can use Grist to take this out, or use whatever I draw off of Sylvan Library. I am down a lot of clock here. Haywire Might is very strong. We'll see which one of these my opponent wants to take out. I think it's Library. Yeah. Edict is a reasonable draw. Opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Get rid of Uro. Plus on this. I'll hold my land drop. Crash in for 2. Call it a turn. Opponent will take 17. I've got both Urza's Saga and Uro to contend with now. The Urza Saga is better against me than the Uro is. Some of the things that I looted through in order to find the Force of Vigor would have been useful at this stage of the game. Okay, opponent did not hit another land drop to do Urza Saga nonsense. Minsc Boo is fantastic. Let's sacrifice a creature. The insect token. Kill Uro. Guess at this point making this land drop is okay. A Minsc Boo. Yes, use this ability. Plus on Boo. This, target that. Make a second token. Yeah. Always yield to that. There's 8 damage on my opponent. My opponent can potentially have a Pithing Needle in their toolkit that they can use. They didn't float a mana with Urza Saga. Oh, there it is. Alright, they are going with a Shadow Spear. This is fine. I'm very much outpacing an Uro at this stage of the game. Another Might is pretty good. Is this still an enchantment on the backside? It is. Oh, my opponent's going that direction. Sure, that's fine. Yeah, that's insane. Alright. White Plume Adventurer. Venture into the Undercity. Grab a basic land. Activate this. Target White Plume Adventurer. Take another token. Take the initiative. Go to Forge. Forge up that hamster. I think at this point, Grist is no longer necessary. Sacrifice the White Plume Adventurer token. Destroy the Uro. Minsc Boo. Plus on this okay, yeah. And then again, we're going to have the White Plume Adventurer Reflection of Kiki Jiki combo, where I get to go and just, like, untap, continue to venture through the initiative. This deck is incredibly slow to pilot. It is incredibly slow to win, but fucking scoreboard, folks. Before our next round here, I'd like to say a quick thank you to Jacob B. and the Mighty Mitch for supporting me for 19 months via YouTube memberships. Thanks for your support. It means a lot. And back to the battles. Okay. Weird hand. Any land drop gets me to Fable. Gets me to everything else. I have 2 playable removal spells. So bad against Wasteland. I am on the play. I think this hand's keepable. But I'm so much better with hands that have a mana dork. Yeah, this is a much stronger hand than the previous one. I will throw back one of the 2 mana dorks. And let's start the game by looking like food chain goblins. Alright. So we are playing against 8-cast or some adjacent deck list. There's also a pretty popular blue painter deck running around. Okay. Relatively speaking, weak hits from Emery. Okay, yep, this is the blue painter list. Witherbloom Command destroys. Doesn't kill Emery. I might need to just kill this Emery so my opponent can't drown me in Bauble Recursion. I don't love accelerating my opponent here. I think it is what it is, though. I would like this to be black-white. We'll fire this off on Emery. And then kind of hope that I can use my other resources to play a reasonable game versus my opponent. Getting there, little fella. I believe in you. Opponent's keeping their baubles, which is horrifying. That means they've got, like, Thoughtcasts, Thought Monitors, Kappa Cannoneers, or something that they need to put into play. It's a Kappa. That's bad. I've got Edicts. I have a lot of Edicts. That unfortunately is not an edict. I'm currently debating whether or not I want to cast this Thoughtseize. I think I do. I think there's enough scary things that my opponent can have that I just have to do this. How much mana does my opponent have? 1, 2, 3. Alright, I'll take the Thought Monitor then. I don't love this because, like, they hit blue cards a lot of the time. And I need to be able to beat this Kappa Cannoneer. But I think if I let them draw 2 with this many artifacts in play, it's also just bad for me. I don't know, maybe with double. It depends on whether or not they crack the baubles immediately, trying to protect Kappa Cannoneer. Oh, fuck. Yeah, we're dead. It absolutely takes a turn or two for me to die, but I'm not going to beat this. So my opponent gets to double bobble to try and find a blue card for Force of Will. Then they have Painter's Servant in Graveyard that will also just beat me. I am going to loot through both of these in an attempt to find something more powerful. Ugh. I don't really see how I win from here. I don't think I cast the Thoughtseize yet. I'll get in for 3 damage, but this Kappa is going to fuck my shit up. And now Edicts don't get rid of Kappa Cannoneer. And there's also just the threat of dying to combo. Yeah, so that's Painter's Servant. And then my opponent grindstones me out. Okay. Yeah, I am comfortable conceding there. I am dead. Deed. Force of Vigor. Pyroblasts are great. I have other Edict options. I don't really like discard versus my opponent. Inquisition in particular misses a bunch of super relevant stuff. I don't think I super like Liliana of the Veil. My opponent's just so much better at drawing cards. And Tarmogoyf feels like it gets chump blocked too easily. From here, I can think about Sheoldred's Edict versus Sudden Edict. I think I like the uncounterability of Sudden Edict better. I think the rest of this needs to stay as is. I will be keeping the shit out of this hand. Pernicious Deed is a hell of a magic card, and I get to accelerate into it. So in case you're not a magic boomer and you don't know the exact text of Pernicious Deed, it says destroy each artifact, creature, and enchantment with mana value X or less. This does include things like artifacts. Or sorry, like artifact lands. Okay, this is all fine so far. So I could deed away my opponent's Seat and Petal, but with the Emery still in play, that doesn't feel fantastic. I think I'm just going to play out a deed this turn with the intention of popping it next turn. It's awkward to telegraph that, but I think that's where I'm at. So I need black mana with this. Suppose Scrubland. My set of things. Be a very good Force of Will or Force of Negation. Alright, it's in play. Again, not gonna pop it to junk the mana sources. The big punish is Ancient Tomb. My opponent getting Lotus Petal from Graveyard, having Ancient Tomb would allow them to Kappa Cannoneer, which is very much outside the range of Pernicious Deed right now. Yep. Thoughtcast is acceptable. Other Thoughtcast is actively good. Full Guide Lantern is actually annoying because of Witherbloom command. So that's a choice. You can just play White Plume Adventurer, start the initiative, attempt to deed next turn, but the deed will become significantly worse against something like Kappa Cannoneer that could very easily sneak into play. And my opponent does have a Kappa Cannoneer in the graveyard. This is sort of disappointing. I think I begrudgingly accept this. Trades these 2 cards for these 2 cards in essence. Lotus Petal sacks to this to draw a card. So it sets my opponent back, but unclear how much they actually do get set back because they cast 2 Thoughtcasts last turn. Oh, that's a shame for me. This is rough. That just represents Grindstone in a couple of turns in a way that Witherbloom command doesn't mess with. Thalavi. Very respectable Force of Will target. Alright. I've already played my land for this turn. Might still just be getting Forest. Green. is probably my bottleneck for multi-spelling here. Yeah, but I just dead to Painter most of the time where my opponent just has mana. Yeah. Backup Painter. The Edicts aren't an out to this anymore. Force of Vigor would be disgusting. Probably need to Lost Well here and Scry. Just need to find something that disrupts what my opponent is doing. Endurance buys me a turn. White Plume's going to the bottom. Just have to accept Endurance, I think. Yep. Glad I got this Forest, because now I do get to multi-spell this turn, whereas I wouldn't be able to otherwise. And next turn I probably have to just end my wheels with Bloodbraid Elf and hope that it goes well. My opponent won't block here. Then I just get to untap this creature. Tax free. Untap the White Plume. Opponent fetches Grindstone. My opponent should wait till my turn to do it, despite the fact that it costs them a couple life. Okay. It doesn't matter if they have a Force of Will. By the way, fun factoid that we learned in another video, the Undercity becoming blue, like, absolutely messes up the templating of this card. Yup. Yeah, there's a lot of goodies in there now. Alright, am I dead to my opponent having Force of Will? No. Nice. Let's assume extra mana is better than not extra mana. If I play Minsc Boo, get attack for 10. Not enough. I play Witherbloom Command and Minsc Boo. How about that? Because I have 6 total mana. Minsc Boo plus 10. Witherbloom Drain is an out. Witherbloom Drain is an out. Alternatively, I can Minsc Boo minus, throw at Emery, then Witherbloom Command, like, get rid of Grindstone, and Drain. No, my opponent doesn't have Force of Will, because I would have been deterministically dead if they did. So my stuff's resolving. I'm not killing my opponent this turn because they have Haywire Might. That can gain them some bonus life. Go ahead and bash on in there. Maybe I'm supposed to use the treasure pre-combat so that Haywire Might can't kill it. Fuck. Yeah, I do lose for that. I just thought my opponent was going to take the damage and play safe. I have 4 mana. Yep, I lose this one for not playing one of my cards pre-combat with my treasure. All thoughts he's my opponent, but then I'm dead. Yeah, I tried to game some extra value there, and I shouldn't have. Oh, Force of Negation beat me anyway. Okay. Good to know. I will make them just activate their card to kill me, though. Untap the 3/4. Matchup feels very tough, though. This blue Painter deck has been putting up a lot of Legacy Challenge results. I wonder if I had a Minsc Boo throw line damage. Alright. My opponent is presumably activating Grindstone here. Yeah, alright. Unseed. Yeah, I punted that one. I tried to get extra value and potentially get blowouts when I should have just played conservatively and done the thing that removed both of these cards 100% of the time. I still think I'll probably lose in game 3. Like, this matchup feels very, very tough, but, like, I punted. Feels so awkward about these one-landers in this deck. I'm going to keep this, I think. This is a very good hand off a Bayou, but I lose a lot in the scenarios where Hierarch is answered and I miss a land drop. Elves? Okay, I hit my land drop. I think I just start on Inquisition here. Get a feel for what my opponent is playing, and then that lets me know whether or not... Oh! Legit JUND. I can take the Green Sun. That is a more immediate threat. Or I can take the Culligan's Command. Culligan's Command is just Culligan's Command. It removes my mana dork. I really need my mana here. I'm going to go ahead and eat this. I'll fetch and play Sylvan Library to ensure that I can keep hitting land drops. Aiga? We'll call it a turn. This league has been so grindy. Probably not going to cast Bloodbraid Elf onto an empty board. Bloodbraid Elf doesn't line up well. Now I have a card that I can actually remove. Put one of these back and just cascade through it. A 4 life for the other one. Alright, Bloodbraid, find me a removal spell for this Dryad Arbor. That's not a removal spell, but that's really good value. And I will absolutely be able to use the mana. I essentially just need to stay aggressive and excuse me, and stay ahead of them in terms of mana development. It's a little awkward when I have Assassin's Trophy as a removal spell, but see where this goes. My opponent gambled their whole game on Dryad Arbor, making it around the battlefield. And it looks like it might work. They're at 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish. And on next turn, maybe 6. Alright. So there goes that. You have like a decay or something that you're throwing out there? Oh, it's the green sun. Oh. Understood. Be a great time to find like a Swords to Plowshares or something. Oh, my life total. Okay. I could play 2 discard spells pre-combat, take both of my opponent's copies of Endurance, and then Bloodbraid Elf into White Plume Adventurer. That sounds great. So I will not use this ability, even though I had previously intended on that. So, Inquisition, target you. Nice. We're taking the flash stuff here. Take Endurance. Thoughtseize, target you. Take Endurance. Go to combat. Swing in with both of these. My opponent needs to take the block. They're going to take 2. We're both going to get some lands. Oh, fuck, I'm shuffling. Right, I'm shuffling the White Plume. It's probably fine. So I have green and red already. Take access to black. And I guess another white shouldn't matter. Take another green. All right, so go to my main phase. We'll go ahead and cascade. Yep. Thoughtseize, target you. Probably take Minsc Boo. Resolve that. Thoughtseize, target you. Take, I do think I still take this. It's more impactful if it gets into play. My opponent can have their green sun. I'm at 4 life. We've got an Assassin's Trophy for whatever they green sun for. So show me what you're working with. It is a green sun. Oh, fuck me. Wait, hold on. Can I block? Can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Alright, cool. Well, that was scarier than I expected it to be. Minsc Boo is very good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Put this on top. Put this on top. Bounce that. Assassin's Trophy Questing Beast out of the way. Opponent picks up a land. I pick up a giant hamster. Alright, and that's good enough for my opponent to concede. That's a pretty respectable board for turn 5, if I do say so myself. Generally speaking, I would like extra removal spells. Sudden Edicts are good. Feed's weird. It's like sometimes going to be very good and sweep some big scary bullshit off the battlefield, but I have a bunch of mana dorks that make Deed awkward. I don't know that I'm actually going to board it in. Inquisition on the draw is a little rough. Leon is a little awkward versus Veteran Explorer. I think I'm going down 2 of these and being good with everything else. I have a reasonable mix of lands and spells here. I will be keeping this hand, kind of relying on Sylvan Library to power me through the early game. Yeah, I imagine that misses. Yep. I'll play known land and pass the turn. I expect that my opponent has Veteran Explorer and is going to immediately sacrifice it to Cabal Therapy based on their name there. Grief. I wonder if they have some, like, Undying Evil stuff that I didn't see. Nope. This or this? Oh, the Edict. Sure. Lol. I just want to remove this ooze immediately. I don't super care about it. If I remove it, my White Plume Adventurer on future turns becomes better, though. Okay. I'll buy that. Pick up maybe a Bayou with one of these. A Scrub. Opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. I am new enough to that card where I'm just double-checking myself every time. My opponent only has 2 cards left since they griefed me and Cabal Therapied me in a way that was not, like, at card parity. Got... Okay, so this gets a Veteran Explorer. They can take my White Plume Adventurer and ramp me out when I have Sylvan Library. That's probably okay for me. I will use this ability. Probably always take Mountain here. Always take Forest. Yep, I lose White Plume Adventurer. My opponent's got 1 card left. It's got to be good. Not something that's slipping into play now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can just do all of this. I actually don't have triple green. I can't do all of this. The Witherbloom command is the one that I do not do. Drop Hierarch. And Library. Yeah, this card is not fantastic in this matchup. I maybe should have boarded this out, but it would be in place of, what, an Inquisition? Which I also just wouldn't have cast that turn. Land drop's not what my opponent wants to see. Okay, they've got something big. Something real big. Green Sun for Titania, maybe? Seems like I called it. Oh, for Elder Gargaroth instead. You don't have any protection keywords, right? It's just Beast, Life, Draw. Yeah. Let's just find a removal spell. Found one. I don't think Noble Hierarch is worth life. Put that back. Pay for that. Take a land drop. Towards you. We're now going to Witherbloom command. I'll mill 3. Take that Noble Hierarch off the top of my deck, and then drain my opponent. I need to leave a green up here. I can cast Endurance afterwards while still attacking. Mana's fine. Oh, I already played a land drop this turn. Oh, that's fine. End of turn Endurance is good enough. Yeah, that's not what my opponent wants to see here. I will go ahead and do this. I don't think I actually want to put that Scavenging Ooze back in my opponent's deck. I think I'm just going to leave graveyards as they are. And now my Sylvan Library, fixing my draws, is going to be incredible in this top deck war. These aren't particularly good. Bayou goes back. Inquisition goes back. I'll hold my land drop and just start doming my opponent for 4. I think I'm ahead in this top deck war. Like, my opponent probably has the larger cards overall in their deck, but not by a lot. Yuck. Position can go back. I really want fresh looks at cards. I think this is fine. Crash in for 4. We'll go through an opposing Endurance. My opponent to 15. I am going to play a Bayou here, because that allows me to multi-spell more easily in case Noble Hierarch ends up dying to a Deed or something. Reanimate on Scavenging Ooze. Sorry. That is not happening. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. All right, so we're at the end of the league here with a 4-1 finish. Overall thoughts on the deck list. This is not a bad deck, but the thing that I will say about it is I feel like you are working too hard. In a world where you could easily build a very similar deck that had blue for expressive iteration, like, that is a card that is just so much easier to win games and bury your opponents with. This league took me about 4 hours to record, so these were very long, very skill-intensive matches. It could have been a 5-0. I would have gone to a game 3 if I didn't punt one of my games versus Blue Painter. But, you know, why not be playing Expressive Iteration and Uro, which are just generally speaking, going to be stronger than a lot of the cards here. I like some things about this. At most junctures throughout this league, I could answer the cards that my opponent were playing. I had a lot of agency in my play, which I like, but I had to mulligan a lot of hands due to mana, either because I didn't have enough or I had the wrong colors. And there's also just like a very noticeable night and day difference between when you do and don't have one of the one of the six hierarchs in your opening hand. If I were to continue playing this, I think Armagoyf would probably go. It was a card I don't think I ever drew throughout this league, but it was one of the first things that I was often thinking about sideboarding out. And generally speaking, I don't know that I need another big fat I don't know that a big booty creature is what this deck is missing in the games that it loses. Culligan's Command was something that didn't occur to me when I was playing the deck. Like, Culligan's Command is very similar to Witherbloom Command in that it is a good way to get a 2-for-1. It's like destroying artifacts is relevant. Generally speaking, I was happy enough with the sideboard after seeing Pernicious Deed in action and like after realizing just how valuable these hierarchs are. I think I would rather turn this into a Meltdown or another Force of Vigor. I don't think any of the numbers here are sacred. This was a fun deck to play. This was a strong deck. But I don't know that I can recommend it at the end of the day because it's competing very heavily with like the blue expressive iteration piles, and it kind of operates in a similar space. So I give this one a thumbs up in terms of gameplay experience and results. I give this one a thumbs down in terms of like recommending it for a competitive tournament. Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please click the like button on the way out. If you have any thoughts about deck building, I would love to hear them. Hit me up in the comments, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. See ya!